Good morning, movement. It is a beautiful day, and it is fantastic to see all of your bright smiles and beautiful faces. To be here and celebrate with you guys. Speaking of, why don't you stand as we celebrate, sing, and we worship our King. And all I see is the battle. You see my victory. When all I see is a mountain, you see a mountain move. And as I walk through the shadows, your love surrounds me. There's nothing to fear now, for I am safe with you. So when I fight, I'll fight on my knees, with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you, and every fear I lay at your feet. I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. And if you are for me, who can be against me? Yes, Lord. For Jesus, there's nothing impossible for you. Come on. When all I see are the ashes, you see the beauty. Thank you, God. Oh, when all I see is a cross, God, you see the empty tomb. So when I fight, I'll fight on my knees, with my hands lifted high. And oh God, the battle belongs to you, and every fear I lay at your feet. I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. An almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. An almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. So when I fight, I'll fight on my knees, with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you, and every fear I lay at your feet. I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. And oh God, the battle belongs to you. Why don't you greet one another? Maybe say hi to a face you might not have seen before. Introduce yourselves.
Good morning. It is good to be with you today. My name's Ellen. I'm just here to connect with you for a moment and kind of lead you through our time together this morning. But it's great to be celebrating with you all today. We're actually jumping into a new message series today. I'm really excited about this one. It's called the Ruthless Elimination of HURRY. And I don't know what your weekend has looked like, but I know for me, yesterday became this day of deciding to tackle all the little random house projects all at once. For some reason, we decided that was a great idea, all in one day. And maybe your weekend has felt like that so far. Maybe you're a parent and you have kids who are involved in lots of activities, and maybe that's what your weekend has looked like. Or maybe you're a student and your weekend has looked like navigating schoolwork and all of the events on the calendar. Whatever it's looked like for you, I think that this is going to be a timely series where we can learn to just have a different pace that we go about life, and I'm excited that we get to step into that journey together. But also, if you're new here, we would love for you to fill out a Connect card so that we can welcome you into this journey together. There's a Connect card in front of you. There's a paper copy, or you can scan the QR code with your phone and fill one out online. And that just gives us some contact information so that we can get in touch with you and you can be part of our mission of helping people find and follow God together. And so take a moment to fill one of those out, and if you fill out a paper copy, there's a drop box in the back here, or there's a drop box out in the lobby that you can drop those in. But it just helps us to welcome you into this together and you to become a part of this community from the first time that you're here. So make sure to fill that out. And also, if it's your first time filling it out, we're going to donate $5 on your behalf to one of our partner organizations, Children's Mentoring Connection, and that's an opportunity for you to really step into being on mission and just really stepping into generosity from your first time with us. So we just encourage you to take a moment to do that. And also, I mentioned a moment ago that our mission is to help people find and follow God. And part of following God is stepping into generosity. It's living with an open hand. One of the ways that we respond to who God is and his faithfulness is by being generous. And so we always slow down and take a moment when we're here together on Sunday to give you an opportunity to step into generosity in a financial giving sort of a way. So if that's something that you want to step into this morning, if that's a way that you want to worship God and respond to what God has done and his faithfulness, then you have the opportunity to do that. There's an envelope in front of you, or you can use the QR code as well to give online if that's an easier option for you. But we invite you to take the opportunity to take that step and worship God in that way today. And like I mentioned, we're stepping into a new message series, so we will move forward this morning by jumping into our message.
I don't know about you, but as I read the words that are on the screen in that video, I'm like, yep, that's my life, right? There has to be a better way because hurry just seems to be a dominant feature in my life. Maybe, like I said, maybe you find yourself there as well. So just so we're on a level playing field here, we'll start over on this side of the room. How many of you have fallen victim to one of these before? Now, that's a loaded question, right? I don't need to hear about how you fell off the back of one of those. Some of you are like, what is that thing? So let me help you out real quick. Maybe yours looks more like this. All right? Right? Anyone else have a $500 or $600 or $1,500 clothes hanger at the house? But, here's the thing. This treadmill, I think it represents many of our lives. I'm going to just let you into my life, share a little bit of my life journey with you, and you can just go on a little trip with me here. Hopefully, the only thing tripping is we go on this together, but I don't fall. But hey, I think this represents our lives in a lot of ways. We get going in life, and for me, I remember going to school. You get to that time frame where you go off to college and you think life is, sort of just begun. And so, you pick up the speed a little bit and you're walking, you're now an adult. Maybe you just entered the workforce, whatever that looks like for you. But for me, I went off to college. And I remember, maybe you're there. I've got my book bag here from, got to carry that with me. I remember being in college and just thinking about how busy my life was, right? Like, I was just like, oh man, this is so much, and I've got so much responsibility. And I'm not saying that's not true, but anyone else, you get out of school and you're like, man, I had no idea what busy was, right? You thought you were busy, but it was really pretty sustainable. Well, I graduated from college in May of 2005, and 2 weeks later, Kate and I were married, and a week after that, after Kate and I were married, I started my first job. So life got a little busier. I look back on that season and just think about how much fun it was, but also how busy it was. But, I started my job. I needed a lunch box for work. I know what you're thinking. There, you can fit a whole lot of food into this guy. But so I started carrying my lunch, and just added a little bit to my schedule. And it was still pretty sustainable. And, but life picked up a little bit. Still kind of slow, though. So I thought, well, let's add some more. So we bought a house. Anyone else buy a house and realize there's a lot of work that comes with a house, right? Like, there are projects all the time. You think buying a house is going to be, like, awesome until you realize that, you have a lot of work to do with it. And so carry this hammer. Now, they would only trust me with a rubber hammer today, so here we go. And then, Kate and I, we started talking about, kids and what that would look like. And I'm thinking, man, we're way too young for that at this point, but maybe there's compromise. And so we did what every good couple does, and we got a cat. Now, at this point, cats don't really add a whole lot of hurry to your life. They just take you further away from God. So that's all. Yeah, right? No, but now you've got this other, animal that you're taking care of, and, there's more responsibility, and, then you realize 6 months after that you have a cat and a child, right? And so our oldest daughter enters the picture. She's a blonde. She came out with her head turned sideways and a red dress on, so, and now life's really begun, right? Now there's a lot of responsibility. Whew. Life picks up a little bit. I'm wobbling. Don't worry, I didn't fall earlier, so I'll try not to again. And man, this is not all that sustainable, so two blondes. That's Lucy there. What's really funny about that, well, other than her, whoa. I don't hold my children by their neck, but so we add Lucy to the mix. And then, getting a little busier. We better play some soccer, Oh, man. Oh. And, oh, man. It's not going well. Hey, the good news is I got to coach soccer, so we won the championship. This is actually my trophy. I'm like tilting. By the way, this treadmill is like 6 inches wide. It is not made for big individuals, all right? So I'll hold on to that. I'll set that there for a moment. All right. Hey, the good news is by the time we're like 42, our kids are going to be grown up and out of the house. Life will slow down. Emily, Queen Elsa, has entered the picture. And now what do we do? And, the truth of the matter is, right, it's not sustainable. Life goes on and on. Eventually a dog enters the picture, and it's all over from there, right? So all that to say, hey, how many of you can relate a little bit that life just seems to be one of those journeys where you add more and you go faster. You add more, you go faster, you add more, And you go faster. Anyone else? Anyone else ever there? Right, yeah, right? I mean, and probably you found yourself saying this before. You've said, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way than this because this just doesn't seem sustainable. Now, I'm sitting in this chair. You know why I'm sitting in this chair, right? Because I can't breathe. That's why I'm sitting here. If anyone's got a Gatorade in the house. No, I'm joking. I'm sitting in this chair, well, yeah, because I can't breathe, but even more than that, I'm sitting in this chair because as we begin this series called The Ruthless Elimination of HURRY, I want you to know that what we're going to talk about is not something where I'm teaching and engaging in this conversation and I've got this figured out and everyone else is trying to figure it out. I'm sitting with you because honestly, as we think about hurry and we think about the pace of life, we think about just everything that we try to fit into our lives, I'm teaching from a deep level of conviction and challenge personally as I try to navigate through this idea that there's got to be a better way. And man, I really believe that over the next few weeks, we're going to see that Jesus offers a better way. And it's going to challenge us, but it's going to be very, very, I think, very, very freeing. But I know what it's like to be in this chair because I find myself here, and quite often it just feels like there's no way out of it. Over the last, couple years, I've just noticed as life gets busier, more activity, more things thrown your way, more challenges, more leadership, more opportunity, right? Because everything's an opportunity. More. Add more, get faster, add more, get faster. What I started to notice is that I had less and less time to give for the things that mattered most. And by things, I mean less and less time for the people that matter most. And found myself being short-tempered, easily angered, very impatient, and constantly frustrated with people that it was not necessarily their fault. I found myself in a place where, in the last 2 years, believe it or not, up until that point, I had never had an energy drink. And then it was like, at one point I was like, I'm really tired. I need something. And, so you add some more caffeine, keep adding more to your schedule, add more. And I just have come to this place where I'm like, man, there's got to be a better way. And so a few months ago, beginning of the year, I read a book. I read a book with the same title as the series we're walking through. It's called The Ruthless Elimination of HURRY. It's a book by an author by the name of John Mark Comer. And just the book was one of those eye-opening, convicting moments where I was like, yeah. Like, have you ever had that moment where you identified and you're just going, yep, this is me. And that's how, right? That's how the Holy Spirit works in our lives is some of you have been in a gathering like this, maybe even here before, where you're like, you've come up to me afterwards and have said, hey, why are you talking about me up there, that's exactly what I need to hear. The reality is the Spirit speaks like that, right? The Spirit convicts and challenges and speaks into our lives. And so I read this book, and it was just one of those aha moments for me where I was like, yep, this is what I need. And so speaking of which, some of what we're going to walk through is actually would track along with the concepts that are in his book and the teachings of that. And so if you go, we have a resource page for this series. If you want to write that down somewhere, we'll probably throw it on Facebook as well. But if you want, it's just our website /HURRY. And there's some podcasts on there. There are some daily readings. There's just a lot of different resources on there that I think will be helpful, including this book. I just encourage you. My guess is, as I was on that treadmill, besides everyone having a panic attack that was going to fall off of it, the other thing that I think is probably true is every one of us like, yep, I can identify at some level. And so I would just encourage you to step into, to lean into and say, God, how do you want to speak? What do you want to say to me? What am I going to do about it? And I really believe that some of the resources we have will help you in that. Now, this series is really built around a couple of words that are very, very significant. And I could just share the words with you, but what would be the fun in that? I'll share a story of how I've seen these words in my life. When we first started meeting as a church, really for the first 5, 6 years of our existence, we met on Sundays at Glenwood Middle School. Some of you were a part of those gatherings for the first 5 years or so. Every week, we'd get there early, we'd set up, we'd do all of that. And I remember, especially over the last couple of years that we were there, I would come to get equipment and stuff like that, and then at our offices, and then I would head there about 7 in the morning. And they installed, now I'm confident it wasn't because of me, but they installed one of those, speed limit radar things on one of the poles right by the school. So as you're driving down Main Street, there'd be a sign, and so it'd track your speed. And the numbers on it were usually red, which I guess means it was above what it was supposed to be, because I was like, oh man, I got to get there. And you would eventually get to where there would no longer just be numbers like, 20, whatever, or 30, Eventually it'd say 2 words. What are the words? Slow down, right? Slow down. And Molly one time asked me, she's in the car with me, and she said, Dad, why does that always say slow down? And here's the thing, right? Like, the thing about slowing down, it's not just a speed limit thing. It's like, that's one of those messages, truthfully, that it's much bigger than that for me, and it's much bigger than that for you. I know it is. But yet, whenever we hear the word slow down, I think there's almost instantaneous pushback, even from a speed limit standpoint, right? Slow down. What do you mean slow down? If you put the speed limit at what it should be, who drives 35 mile an hour on a Sunday morning there, there's pushback. Like, I can't go that, I can't do that. And when we think about our lives, there's constant pushback. And I think the reason that there's constant pushback is because of what we associate these words with. Like, it's just, hurry and busyness is really worn as a badge of honor, right? Like, if I were to ask you how your weekend's going, 90% of you would say, I've been busy, and, or it's been pretty busy, or wow, things are moving fast. And what's fascinating about that is then I would, in return, feel like I needed to say what? Me too, right? Oh, me too. Because, if you ever, you probably would want to smack them if you're like, man, I'm just really busy, and someone like, oh, not me, I'm just hanging out, I just got the peace, everything's great, and I'm just looking for things to do. What do you mean you're doing? That's not what happens, you see, because slow, like culturally speaking, slow has become like a bad word, and hurry just seems like the way of the world and the way that we're to go. And today I want to begin by introducing the problem with hurry, and it is a problem. And here's going to be the tension. I'm not going to give you all the answers today. In fact, my job today is just to introduce the problem. Some of you there's going to be this tension because you're going to be like, oh, just give me the answer already. That means you have a hurry problem, but that's all right. And some of you are going to, it's going to challenge you a little bit because you're just going to want to know what to do about it. Right? You're just going to give me the answer on how I can fix this. And some of you are like, hurry up, give me the answer. And it's not that easy because this isn't a 30-minute solution, all right? This isn't what can happen in a 30-minute teaching. And some of you are thinking, when have you ever only taught for 30 minutes? Once again, slow down, all right? Slow your roll. So anyways, all right, with all that being said, slow's bad, fast is good, right? Think about this for a moment. If you go to a movie and it's really not that good, what typically you say, oh man, it was so slow. It was so boring. I was talking to someone today, it's funny, someone who even knew what I was going to be teaching on, and I was like, hey, what'd you do? They told me they went out to eat, and they're like, it was so slow. They were like, we were there for, they told me how long they were there, and that they'd probably never go back. And I'm like, yeah, I absolutely, right? Because slow's bad. A couple weeks ago, I saw that Major League Baseball has instituted basically a shot clock because no one's watching baseball anymore because it's too what? Too slow, right? It's like, come on, the game's just dragging. Like, let's pick it up. And if someone's driving the speed limit and you're behind them on a road that's only 2 lanes and the middle markers are both yellow, you get really, really aggravated, right? Because they're going way too slow, and you're thinking, like, they need to pick up the pace. Slow is bad, right? Fast is good. So much so, check out this definition straight from Merriam-Webster on slow. This is what we read. Slow is mentally dull, having qualities that hinder rapid progress or action, naturally inert or sluggish, lacking in life, boring, right? Like you think about the word slow, it's like, man, if your life is slow, then you are lacking in life. Now think about that for a moment, because I really do believe that's like the challenge, is that we've just become accustomed to this idea that slow is bad, fast is good. We add more, go faster, add more, go faster. And here's the challenge for you and me. It's twofold. The first challenge is this. We know, because I've already shown you on here, it's just not a sustainable thing, right? Like eventually the wheels come off. Some of you have experienced that. Like you've come to this point of burnout, or you've come to this point in your life where you're just like at wit's end and you just don't know what to do. And you're like, oh man, what do I do now? You've experienced that. But the second problem and challenge is this, is that if you follow Jesus, let me just say, maybe you're here and you're not a follower of Jesus. And I would just say, first and foremost, like this is a place for you to explore, search, ask questions. This is a place for you to really seek that out. But I'll just give you a little hint on what we want to see, what we love for you in your life. We really believe that the best way to live is to follow Jesus, follow who he is and his teachings and the ways of Jesus. And so, like, that's the goal here. And if you follow Jesus, here's what I really believe, that it's not just, I think it's easy to say, well, I'm going to follow his teachings, right? Do what he says. But one of the most significant things, if not the most significant thing, and I'm learning this more and more. Like, honestly, this has been a journey for me personally. Like, it's one thing to do what Jesus says, but Jesus actually wants us to live as he lived, right? Like, to model our lives after him. Like, one of the reasons that Jesus came and lived amongst us is to really show us what it looked like to live as God created us to live, and to live that full life. And if we're really going to live as Jesus lived, then we need to understand this about Jesus. Like, Jesus was never, if not rarely ever, in a hurry. We just never see him. In the Gospels, we never see Jesus in a hurry. Like, listen, he like walked everywhere, okay? He was walking along. I mean, Jesus even walked on water. Now, I'm telling you, like, if you're, yeah, right? So think about that. But let's move beyond just like his travel patterns, all right? Like, think about the way that he lived. I love just the picture of Jesus, like the crowds are around and everyone wants a piece of Jesus, and he's healing people and all this stuff's happening. He's like, hey guys, I'm just actually going to step out for a while. I'm going to go up and just be alone with the Father, right? And they're like, oh, Jesus, there's all this stuff. He's like, no, I'm going to go here. Or there'd be other times where Jesus would be around crowds of people, and the disciples would be like, Jesus, we need to go. Like, we need to go to the next town. We got places to go, people to see. And Jesus would be like, no, I have time for these people. I mean, even little kids, right? Like the kids were all around and everyone's like, well, Jesus, you don't have time for that. You've got more important things. And Jesus says, let the little children come to me. Or he's walking along out of a town after some significant work had been done, and Zacchaeus, this tax collector's in the tree, and it would have been easy for Jesus just to keep walking and go to his next destination. And instead he says, Zacchaeus, come down. I actually want to have dinner with you. I'm going to go to your house. I want to spend time with you. I want to be present and with you. We look at Matthew chapter 5 through 7 is the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus' most famous teaching. And he's out in this mountainside and he's delivering this message, and he's so present, right? He's so present in that place, so focused that as he's teaching about worry and anxiety, he actually looks around and he's like, hey, look at the birds that are here. Look at the flowers in this field over here. They don't work harder or worry about this stuff. They just really trust them. And what I see in that is this constantly ever present, in the moment, available, peace-filled life that Jesus lived. And it would be easy to say in that, well, yeah, that's because Jesus didn't have a boss asking him to work 60 hours a week, and Jesus didn't have 3 kids in travel sports, and Jesus didn't have Twitter, and whatever else that might fit into the picture. It'd be easy to say, yeah, Jesus didn't have that much to do, but it's just not true. In fact, Jesus in his 3 years of ministry that are recorded in the Gospels, I really believe if we were to stop and look back, I mean, Jesus accomplished more in those 3 years than any of us will accomplish in our lifetime. And so it wasn't a matter of whether or not Jesus was productive or accomplished. It was more about the way that he lived his life. He lived his life at a slow, steady pace. And he really understood something that I would just say that the medical profession has recognized as of late as well. And they've even coined a term to describe what people are experiencing, and it's this term hurry sickness, right? And there's actually a medical term now, hurry sickness, and it literally, the definition of it is this. It's a behavior pattern characterized by continual rushing and what? Anxiousness. And the more we add and the faster we go, and the more we add and the faster we go, anxiety creeps in, stress level increases, and we just say, like, how do I maintain all of this? In fact, this term was coined by some cardiologists that actually did some research on the whole topic of hurry. And I think it's just so fascinating, right? That it was heart doctors who really discovered just the impact of hurry on our lives, because that's what hurry does. It impacts our heart. It impacts our heart from a physical standpoint. It impacts our heart from a spiritual standpoint as well. And so you might be wondering, like, how do I know? How do I know if I suffer from hurry sickness? What does that look like? And so professionals have actually created a quiz to help you discern whether or not hurry is an issue in your life. Now, there's 6 questions in this quiz, and you either give yourself a 0 as in I don't struggle with this, or a 1 as in yep, that's me. And some of you are gonna be like, oh, that's not a struggle, and then the person next to you is gonna elbow nudge you and be like, dude, come on, right? That's what they're gonna say, and you can go on from there. But here are the questions, right? Number 1, you treat everything like a race. All right, let me define that a little bit more for you, just specifically. You ever move from like one line to another at the grocery store because you're trying to get through there, right? It's a race to see who can finish. You ever, like, at the checkout line, at the self-checkout, there's like 8 rows, and you're like, okay, I think maybe, and you're like looking because you're just waiting to see when it's going to be your turn. Or maybe when you're driving on the highway and it looks like it's the Daytona 500, right? Because you're in and out of lanes and going, because it's a race. Now, if that's you, put yourself down as a 1. If not, you get a 0. Next one, you find it impossible just to do one task at a time. You're always multitasking. Now, I sort of get a pass on this because I don't have the ability to multitask, but some of you in this place right now, actually, as I said that, you were just finishing your grocery shopping on your phone, all right? You were click listing, so you can just give yourself a 1 there. Okay, the next one, you get highly irritable when experiencing a delay, right? Like, when delays happen in your life, you start to get frustrated, and you say, like, do you realize this is putting me back, and I have places to go and things to do and people to see and, all that, and you start to get frustrated, and it's aggravating. Mark yourself a 1 if that's you. You feel perpetually behind schedule. For those of you with teenage daughters, just put 1 down and move forward. You interrupt or talk over people. Now, some people would just say that's rude, but I think the reality is so often that happens because you're trying to get as much into a conversation as you can in a limited amount of time. And you want to make sure you get your stuff in because then you're going to move on. And last, you're obsessed with checking things off your to-do list. All right. So how'd you score? Anyone in the house get a 0 out of 6? Anyone? Come on. Where you at? Where you at? No one, right? Right? No one, because here's the thing. I think every single one of us recognizes that we have this tendency or this lean towards hurry and this lean towards busy. And so the question is, like, what do we do with it? I mean, we try to normalize it. We try to celebrate it. But let me just tell you, I feel like in the process of normalizing hurry and just, as I read through those, sometimes we laugh about it. Sometimes we are like, yeah, everyone does that. Like, it's just natural, right? Like, everyone multitask. Everyone, doesn't like to wait at the grocery store, right? Every one of us. But I think what we've done is we've done something that can have a devastating impact on us spiritually And the reason why, I think, is in some things that Jesus says to us. And there's this time where Jesus is with some religious leaders, and they're trying to trick them, and they say, Jesus, tell us what the most important command is. And Jesus responds to them as he gives them a command. He actually gives them two commands, and they're what? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, strength, your mind. Second is equal. Love your neighbor as yourself. In other words, Jesus says, if you want to know what's most important, it's loving God with everything that you have and loving people as yourself. And what he's saying, if you were to simplify even more, is that love should be the defining characteristic of our lives. As a follower of Jesus, if you want to know, what is my life supposed to look like, it's supposed to be defined by love. So much so that Jesus says, they will know, you're my disciples by the way you love. And it's just this understanding that love is really this defining characteristic. And here's the thing about hurry that I want to suggest, and that's probably going to maybe even have a little pushback, but just walk with me here for a minute. I really believe that hurry and love are incompatible. That you can't fully love and be in a hurry. That they just are incompatible with each other to the point where if you look in 1 Corinthians 13, it's this great chapter that talks about love, and it gives us all these characteristics. Paul writes all these characteristics about what love is. And you've probably heard it at a wedding or, somewhere before. And Paul starts this list, and the first thing he says this way. He says, love is patient. Love is patient. He starts with what for many of us is one of the most difficult things to do, and that is to be patient. And there's just this understanding that really that love and patience, you can't be in a hurry and fully love. And the reality is, when we live life on this, adding more, going faster, adding more, going faster, adding more, going faster, it limits our ability to love God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength. And it limits our ability to love those people that God's placed in our lives, to love them fully and deeply and truly how he wants us to love them. Because, we know this, love requires time. Some of us experience this within the pandemic. It's always fascinating. You go back and talk and just relive some of the pandemic stuff. And, if I were to ask, what was your favorite part about the pandemic? I mean, not that you would ever say that. It sounds horrible. But everyone, if you say, hey, what was the good that came out of the pandemic? Everyone, of course, say what? I would say the arguments over masks, and then they would go, no, I'm joking. So what they would say, what I've heard over and over again is, remember back when everything just shut down, right? And all of a sudden, people were having meals at their table again with their families. And oh my goodness, people are taking walks because there's nothing else to do. So they're walking in neighborhoods. People knew their neighbors because they were outside and life was kind of happening. And remember that? And everyone's like, oh yeah, that's that was if there was one good thing out of that, it was for this brief moment, right? This brief moment in history, everything slowed down, and holy moly, relationships improved for the most part. I mean, obviously there's some other tension there as well, but relationships improved and people had time to love and to live life, and it looked different. And so we all know there's power in that. And here's what I find fascinating when it comes to our spiritual life, which is our life, but when it comes to loving God, there's an author and theologian by the name of Dallas Willard. He's passed away, but he wrote this. He said, hurry is the greatest enemy of our spiritual life in our day. And I think that's so interesting to think that this person who is so deeply connected to the spiritual life, he wrote books about spiritual practices and habits and how to connect with our Father, and he wrote these books. He said, the greatest enemy of our spiritual life is hurry. Not addiction, not the internet, not, some kind of relational issue, not hate, not, he says, hurry is the greatest thing that stands between you and the life that God has for you. And the reason why is when we're hurried, we're disconnected from God. And our enemy, our spiritual enemy, Satan wants to do, if anything, he wants to disconnect us from our Father. He wants to disconnect us from the relationship that we were created to be in. And you look all the way back to the beginning of creation, and I find it so fascinating. Like, think of life back at creation, and it was like Adam and Eve are in the garden, and they're with God, and God is with them, and there's just this harmony, and there's this peace, and there's this unity. And when hurry enters the picture of our lives, it disconnects us from the ability to be able to love as God's created us to love. And so he says, hurry is the great enemy of our day. Now, what's so interesting is, like, what's the answer to this? And I think some of us would say the answer is just to, like, if I just had more time, right? If I just had 3 or 4 more hours in the day, life would be good. But here's the problem. If we had more time, what would we do? We'd fill it with more stuff, right? We just fill it and, we just add more to our schedule and all that kind of stuff, because that's what we've done already to this point. I mean, if you were to look right now and say, like, okay, what day, if you were to look at your screen time for the week, my guess is the day that you're actually off work is probably the day that you have the most screen time, because you're like, okay, I've got this time, I gotta do what? I gotta fill it. And so you fill it up, because that's just naturally what we do, is we just add and we add and we add and we add. And so more time's not the solution, but the Bible actually gives us a solution. And Paul writes it in the book of Ephesians chapter 5. He says this, just listen to these words. Look at these words with me for a moment. He says, look carefully, look intently, then how you walk, how you live. Not as unwise, but as what? As wise. Making the best use of the time, because the days are evil. Now, am I saying activity and adding more stuff is evil? No, not in and of itself. But here's what we all know to be true, right? Like, as culture shifts, what happens is we add more, we add more, we add more, we add more. And what happens is, we've already discussed, is it takes us away from, right? It takes us away from time that we would spend in relationship with God and with the people that we're called to love. And so he says, look, as the days get more evil, our time becomes more precious and more of a thing that we need to pay attention to and be careful with, and we need to be wise with. And he says we need to make the best use of our time, right? Make the most out of our time. And this phrase, making the most of our time, another translation from the Greek, like a very literal translation, would be redeeming our time. We need to learn to redeem our time, to make it have value, have significance and value for what's most valuable in life. And what if there was a way for you and for me to redeem our time for something that's better? Not something more, but just something better. And I think there is, as we look at the ways of Jesus and what he has for us, as we look at how he lived and what he invites us into, I think what we see is something so much better. Jesus is with a group of people who were living their own version of the hurried life, and their rhythms and their schedule were out of whack. And here's what Jesus says to them in Matthew chapter 11. He says, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened. I think many of us would say, yeah, we understand that, right? Weary and burdened. And I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is what? It's light. It's not heavy. Many of us carry around a heavy burden, and I would just say, like, that's not what God has for you. He says, take my yoke upon you. Now, this is a farming term, or something that they would have understood from a livestock standpoint in that culture. A yoke is actually this instrument that was used to connect two oxen together so that they could, plow fields and do work in the fields. And the fascinating thing about a yoke is when you connected two oxen, you could actually be more productive and get more work accomplished, because now you would allow that to combine their power, and it would be driven by that farmer, right? It'd be guided by the person that was in charge of that. And Jesus says, hey, look, I want to guide and direct your life. I want to lead the way. I want to point you in the direction that you're to go. And when you do that, you experience rest. Rest for your souls, rest for your life. You discover rest. What Jesus isn't saying is stop working and stop doing stuff. In fact, a yoke was used for work, right? It wasn't don't be productive. It was allow my ways to be the guide of how you view value and significance, priority and accomplishment. Let me lead the way. Let me lead. He's saying quit following the ways of everyone else, quit following the ways of what you think you need, and lean into what you really need, which is what I know you need. Do it with me. That's what Jesus says. Let me read this passage in the Message version. I love this. We're just going to close with this. Here's what is translated from a paraphrased version of this passage. Jesus says this. He says, are you tired? Check. Are you worn out? Check. You burned out on religion? It's just work, right? Religion can lead to work. Come to me, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Just keep company with me, and you'll learn how to live freely and lightly. That's the journey we're going on over the next few weeks, is what does it look like to live freely and lightly? What does it look like to lean into these unforced rhythms of grace and really experience the life God has for us? I'm going to give you some homework, and it's simply this. Would you take those questions, those 6 hurry questions, would you just daily evaluate, where am I at in this? What role does hurry play in my life right now? Where am I at when it comes to rest? And just begin to evaluate on those questions. We'll throw them on the resource page as well, so you can find them there. Maybe you wrote them down, but would you just begin to evaluate and begin to identify, right? Begin to identify where it is that God wants to speak in. God, what are you trying to say to me about my pace of life, about what you have for me? What are you trying to say to me? And so let me just close. Let me just read these words of Jesus again, and I just want to invite you to close your eyes as I read them and just really reflect and respond on these words. And let me tell you, I think there's some of us in here that are weary and burdened and worn out, and maybe it's because it was a long week. Maybe it was because it was a long month or a long year. Shoot, for some of us in here, it's been a long 5 years, a long 10 years. For some of us, we're weary because not just of what's happened in the past, but we look at the next 6 months or years and are just like, or a year, and we're like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. It just seems so daunting and so busy and so full. And how, like, what about my soul? Where am I going to find rest? Would you just let Jesus speak into that? Let me just read these words to you again. Would you just close your eyes? Are you tired? Are you worn out? Burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me, and you recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy on you or ill-fitting, but rather just keep company with me, and you'll learn to live life freely and lightly.
Well, we're going to pass the communion baskets, but when you get your communion, don't take it yet. Don't take it yet. You can pass them. I think even in celebrations, we often rush things to get to our lives and to do the next thing. And we want to do something different. We want to change our rhythm. We want to make space for God to move in our hearts. It's so easy to come into this and to forget that God actually wants to speak directly to you. He wants to speak into your life. And communion is all about our Savior giving his life for us, his body broken for us, his blood poured out for us. This happened that you might have eternal life. And so I'm just going to sing this part of the song, and I just want you to sit there and reflect. What's God saying to you? What has he done for you? Are you going to take his yoke upon you? So just sit and reflect.
Your way is better. Your way is better. Your way is better. Your way is better. So shake up the ground to form my tradition. Break down the walls of all my religion. 'Cause your way is better. Your way is better. Shake up the ground of all my tradition. Break down the walls of all my religion. Your way is better. Your way is better. Your way is better. Your way is better. See, your way is better. Your way is better. Whenever you're ready, you can take communion whenever you're ready. You shake up the ground of all my tradition, all my norms, God, and break down the walls of all my religion. Your way is better. Your way is better. And shake up the crown of all my traditions. Break down the walls of all my religion. Your way is better. Your way is better. See, your way is better. Say your way is better. Your way is better. Hey, whenever you're ready, you can stand with me. is where I lay it down. Every burden, every crown. This is my surrender. This is my surrender. Here is where I lay it down. Every lie and every doubt. This is my surrender. And I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. And I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. Jesus, yeah, would you do a new thing within our hearts, God? Here is where I lay it down. Every burden, every crown. This is my surrender. Oh, this is my surrender. And here is where I lay it down. Every lie and every doubt. This is my surrender. And I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. And I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. Yeah. Shake up the ground, every voice, come on. Shake up the ground of all my tradition and break down the walls of all my religion. Your way is better. What is it? Your way is better. Shake up the ground of all my tradition, break down the walls of all my religion. Your way is better, Jesus. Your way is better. Shake up the ground of all my tradition, break down the walls of all my religion. Your way is better. Your way is better. And I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. Every voice. And I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. I've seen you move the mountain, and I believe I see you do it again. You made a way when there was no way, and I believe I see you do it again. I've seen you move the mountains, and I believe I see you do it again. You made a way when there was no way, and I believe I see you do it again. I see you do it again, God. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness. Your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. promise still stands. Lord, great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never failed me yet. I've seen you move the mountain, and I believe I see you do it again. You made a way where there was no way, and I believe I see you do it again. Jesus, I see you do it again. Worthy of it all. You are worthy of it all. For from you are all things, and to you are all things. You deserve the glory. You are worthy. You are worthy of it all. You are worthy of it all. For from you are all things, and to you are all things. You deserve the glory. Come on, we sing, you are worthy. You are worthy of it all. You are worthy of it all. For from you are all things, and to you are all things. You deserve the glory. Sing out to our King, every voice, come on, let's sing. You are worthy of it all. You are worthy of it all. For from you are all things, and to you are all things. You deserve the glory. Let's pray. Jesus, would you do a new thing in our hearts? You cause us to slow down, to invite you in. Heavenly Father, you invite us into rest, into a different pace. It's different from this world. And God, would you move mountains in our lives? Would you remove that word I can't and replace it with victory in you? God, would you just move in this place? Would you move in our hearts? In the name of Jesus we pray, amen.
You know, I think as we reflect on just that idea of hurry sickness and the way that it's destroying our well-being, our wholeness, and I think about the way that we are invited to a different pace, but more than just invited into slowing down and moving in a different pace. I think the true invitation is to model our lives after the ways of Jesus. And I hope that you know that as a church community, like that's our desire, is that together we would choose to model our lives after the ways of Jesus. And Eric, I'd love for you to speak into that a little bit more, and just like really significant ways that we want to specifically invite people into that.
Yeah, I think, you know, that passage out of Ephesians where Paul says, live not as unwise, but as wise, and making the most of your life is really about understanding what is the life that God's created me to live, and then how do I live that in its fullness. And you know, I think you're right on. It's together exploring that and saying, how do we live differently? Because the world's going to tell us one thing, and the question is, like, Are we going to choose to go in that direction, or are we going to really choose to say, Jesus, you have something better for me? And so, hey, with that being said, I do want to invite you. Let's add some stuff to our calendars. So,
Right.
yeah,
After we
right?
talked about not adding
No,
things.
seriously though, like tonight we're beginning a journey called Amplify. It's something we've never done before. It's honestly it's 8 years in the making. As we started out this journey as a church called Movement, what we're going to talk about in Amplify is really the culmination of going, okay, this is what this life looks like, and it's honestly what we're talking about at a larger scale from what we're talking about in this series. What does it really look like to live as Jesus lived, and how do we do that, and how do we help each other in that? And so we're going to gather tonight for our first time, and it's not too late to be a part of that. We weren't planning on inviting, we've talked about it for the last month or so. It wasn't really on the agenda to talk about today, but really just feel like for some of us here, we're going, I know there's something more, something better, honestly, and so we're going to walk through that. It's a 9-month commitment. You can find out more at the website right there, /Amplify. You can sign up there. And I'll just give you a free pass for tonight if you're like, hey, I want to come tonight. I don't know. I just want to explore. Come tonight and figure it out. So it's a great way to do that. Anything I'm missing with Amplify?
No, we would love for you to come tonight and just, as Eric said, just check out what it would look like to make that commitment to be part of that 9-month journey. And so consider joining us tonight at 5:00 this evening. But really, as we leave from this space, we're reminded that we get to choose a different pace, that we get to look to the life of Jesus and live out that different pace that he invites us into. So the invitation in that as you leave today is movement. Would you go and be the church?